All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Carey with Church of the Eternal Logos, and today I want to talk to you guys about the theology of the NPC, of the non-playable character. We're going to be diving into, this should be a fun stream, we're going to be diving into the meme that swept at least America in 2018 and 2020 with Trump. And this was essentially initially a sort of political meme. But what I want to do is provide a sort of theological framework for its societal reality. I think, you know, any of us that that are aware of the state of the world right now see that people are becoming less and less human. They're becoming less human and more like computers and machines. And in fact, I have a couple articles that are going to be hitting on this when we get to that part of the stream. And so how do we understand what the heck is going on right now? Why are people becoming more and more machine-like, less human? And how do we understand this as Orthodox Christians? Well, that's what I'm going to try to lay out with what I see as the loss of personhood. And this is going to be the fundamental basis for my premise today, is that the NPC, the non-playable character, is actually the end product of a demonic agenda that is trying to eradicate the image of God within your own person, within your own reality, in which we then engage with God and come to communicate and interact with him through his uncreated energy. So really, without orthodox Christian theology, the energy essence distinction, the uncreated energies of God, theosis, theology of personhood, you can't fully understand what I'm trying to lay out. A lot of it's going to overlap with all sorts of Protestant and Catholic. Obviously, we're coming from a Christian perspective, but when it gets down to this whole loss of personhood and what's going on, I'm going to begin by arguing that sin dulls our faculties and makes us more and more like animals. And so, what is this non-playable character? It's somebody who has no internal monologue. It's somebody who cannot critically think. It's somebody who literally takes their own, whatever their opinion, their thought process, literally from the world. And I'm going to get to this dissolution of boundaries because in a way it connects with my presentation at Orthodox Montanica on what I call demonic henosis. And that this dulling of our faculties is actually taking out the image of God, making us more and more and more like animals. And what separates us from animals? It's the ability to use language, higher symbolic processes. It's logic. It's reason. It's this understanding of objective truth. It has to do with morality and mercy and compassion and the recognition of honor and all these different things that we would again call the uncreated energies of God. As Orthodox Christians, it's through these uncreated energies that we come to know who God is. Just as through my energetic processes, my crazy hand movements, my language, everything that I do takes energy. And that's how you come to know who I am as a person. That's how we come to know who the three persons of the Holy Trinity is. One essence, three persons. And so when we start to look at society, I've done multiple streams talking about the loss of literacy. We're becoming literally more illiterate. That people literally can't communicate as well as they used to, that people don't believe in objective truth, that people are becoming less compassionate. So we see society itself moving in the sort of opposite direction of what Orthodox Christianity would teach us about the energies of God. And it's through these energies of God that we are made in the image. That's how we then can come to know God. That is how we are the epitome. We are the top pinnacle of creation itself because we can engage in these faculties. We have these abilities. But when we look at these NPCs, they are literally losing that process. They are losing the image of God, and that is why they are turning into automatons. And we've seen this with our friends. We may be dealing with this with our family. We may be dealing with this with our coworkers. But there's no question that any of us are dealing with it in regards to society as a whole. Society as a whole. And I would argue that the more we engage with these sort of NPC, these non-playable characters, the more we're going to recognize that they are actually falling away from the ability to interact with these uncreated energies of God, which is the whole process of theosis. That's how we become divinized and become more like God. Which ironically, and what I'm going to finish with, is how we become more human. You see, Jesus Christ is the fullness of what man could be. And it's through theosis, through full God, becoming full man, and one single person uniting two natures together, that's how we enter into eternity. That's how we don't die when we die. And this is the entire point of Orthodox theology. And so, what's happening then is a demonic process, that the NPC, the non-playable character, is literally a demonic process taking the image of God out of people so that they become automatons, that they lose uniqueness, that they actually aren't special. And we see this also with the aesthetics, right? The pink and purple hair, the tattoos, the nose piercings. Why do they tend to all look the same? When we were at yesterday night was the Freedom Festival in Greenwood, Indiana. And so it's a small gathering, local town, big firework display at the end, kind of like a small little fair thing for one day where it promotes America and freedom and patriotism. And they have all these little booths. And so I'm at the St. Mary of Egypt Orthodox Church trying to let people know about the church that Jesus founded. And then there's a booth next to us for the veterans who died in wars. And then the next one over is the Johnson County Democrats. And lo and behold, over and over and over again last night, we saw over at the Democrat tent Again, the same colored hair, the same looking tattoos, the same style of dress, and over again. And it's like interesting, right? That in the name of what they perceive as uniqueness, in the name of what they perceive as becoming who they are, they actually lose any sort of specialty, and they regurgitate the same narratives, the same ideas, and they look the exact same. This is the NPC. And so I argue that entertainment programming is literally programming people's perspective and emotional response. Now, this isn't revolutionary. You guys probably already think the exact same thing. That entertainment, that programming, TV programming, radio programming, YouTube programming, that it really is programming the person. That's why, again, they're a non-playable character. They're a programmed individual. They are working on a different operating system than you and I are. They literally are automated. And so as we watch TV and, engage in all these programs, what they're doing is they're desensitizing us from things. If we're living a righteous, pious life, an orthodox life, many things would sort of throw us off. All the sexuality on TV, all the violence, the crime, and the murder. But those are the hottest programs. And so we see the programming, the entertainment programming, desensitizing us to things that if we're living that sort of righteous life, that we would sort of be in opposition to. It's kind of rub us the wrong way, right? And yet it's not. People are actually becoming more and more and more normalized and desensitized to these things, which is doing what? It's making people less human. People, and we see this all the time. Like the woman, when she was getting attacked on a subway in New York City, some Asian woman by a black man. People just walk by. They don't even stop. They don't even help. What's going on? These are NPCs. We see that the cultural programming, and let me make a caveat here that obviously I'm not talking about anybody and everybody. This is a spectrum, right? This sort of NPC thing is certainly a spectrum, and that people may be an NPC on a particular topic, i.e. abortion. Again, glory to God that Roe v. Wade was overturned, that some movement in the right direction has been established here in the United States. But look at the reaction. Did you guys see in Dallas, like all the women that were half naked twerking? In protest to abortion? One chick says, like, I have a right to be a hoe or something. It was like painted on her body, and you're thinking, what is going on? But you see the desensitization. They're so desensitized, they don't even recognize how outrageous it is that they're half naked, shaking their ass on in public at a parade, at a protest, to kill children, which was trying to be normalized after birth. You see, it's a desensitization process. It's making us less and less human. And so by becoming cultural consumers, people become automated receivers. So let me explain what I mean there. As we become cultural consumers, people become more like automated receivers. And what I mean by that is, when I started to think about this topic on what is driving the NPC process, let's say we're all on the NPC spectrum to some degree. Maybe you and I are there again, and we're unconscientious of where we're falling short. But if it's a spectrum, what is driving this process of people voluntarily losing the image of God in themselves? What would it be? And as I thought about it, what kept coming to mind is consumerism. It's consumerism. And that consumerism, whether it be consuming this entertainment programming, whether it be consuming Reese cups, whether it be consuming, corn fructose syrup, whether it be consuming seed oil, whatever it is, it could be consuming the latest Yeezys, whatever it is, cultural consumption is then a feedback loop that is perpetuating this non-player character and that's why the Fortune 500 companies, through the ESGs and all these different scores, the centralized banks, it's all tied together. It's all in an agenda together. And so if you then are not conscientious, if you don't have God in your life, if you don't have a different operating system, then the operating system of culture becomes your operating system, and that is then installed every time you become a consumer, a passive consumer, every time you watch a piece of programming, every time you buy something name brand, there's a dopamine hit, and it's a Pavlovian response, right? Just like Pavlov's dogs, right? You ring the bell, their mouths salivate because they want a treat. Well, in a way, this is exactly what's happening to people. There's been a Pavlovian response regarding consumerism itself. And as people dive deeper into these consumeristic behaviors, they're actually losing the image of God. Christ was a builder. Christ was a carpenter. Christ means that he builds things. And creativity and creation itself can only come from God. And so isn't it ironic that the evil one who can't create, can only mimic, distort, misrepresent, then is getting everybody to not create but to consume? And that everybody's then losing the image of themselves. They're slowly, because the NPC, the automaton, is the sort of dominion of the evil one. It's a sort of foot soldier, because Satan himself can't have the image of God in him, right? So if Satan himself can't have that image of God, he's working overtime to make sure everybody else is losing that image of God. So when they die, they cannot live eternally. Because as Orthodox Christians, as the Orthodox Christian Church teaches us, it's only based on how much of these energies, these uncreated energies of God, that we take in, that we become more like God. And if we're filled with uncreated energies that are uncreated, they are eternal. If we are filled with eternal energies, how could we die when we die? Well, Orthodox Church said you can't. That's the whole point of the incarnation and theosis and Christ and why we follow him, because as we're filled with those uncreated energies, which ironically are tied to the image of God in us, we move closer to that which is ultimately true. But we see that our brothers and sisters, sadly, are falling away from this calling. And so the cultural programming is becoming a new operative, a new system, a new operative programming, right? A new program to re-understand the world in themselves. And so, again, it's coming through the programming, it's coming through the consumerism. And so corporations then are these feedback loops. They perpetuate these values that ultimately desensitize. I mean, at the Johnson County Democrat tent last night, what were the two issues? The two issues, again, we're in the middle of America. We're in Indiana. We're in a conservative county. What do you think the two issues that the Democrat tent was pushing last night? Protect trans kids, so sterility. We know that it leads to high rates of suicide, almost 50% amongst those who have the surgery. And then it was legalize abortion. So to kill kids and have as much promiscuous sex as you want. Those, I kid you not, those were the two things that the Johnson County Democrats were pushing last night in middle conservative America. This is the new OS system, right? This is literally a new operating system. The operating system is death. And so the operating system is ultimately the dissolution of boundaries. That's why it can be Chrislam. It could be the new Christian, Islam, Jewish religious center of ecumenicism in the UAE. It could be, again, the anti-life agenda of the trans kids and the abortion. That what I believe is going on here is the NPC is the product of what I talked about at Orthodox Montanica as demonic henosis. Demonic henosis. So what am I talking about? That henosis is a term coming from Neoplatonism. And this is a different understanding of how we kind of merge back with God. And so in Orthodox Montanica, I was really hitting on what I believe to be the greatest threat to traditionality, to Christianity, to orthodoxy, generally speaking, is this dissolution of boundaries and the privileging of unity over multiplicity, unity over particularity, unity over the specific. And so this concept of unity is used rhetorically, again, as sort of religious sentiments for these people. This is the New World religion. And henosis, unlike theosis, so theosis in Orthodoxy, we enter into eternity by becoming like God through our personhood. So we all become like God through his grace by engaging with those energies, but we maintain our particularity. We maintain our personhood and our distinction amongst each other. In Neoplatonism, they did not have that doctrine. They privileged, like Plato being Neoplatonists, they privileged unity over multiplicity. And so the whole point of henosis, 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 in Neoplatonism, you can look it up, this is a real theological term, is that God is he is the dot, and everything then is emanating from that center dot. Then we then are on the very furthest concentrical circle of that dot. What do we have to do? What is our religious spiritual obligation? To dissolve those boundaries, those emanative processes, to get back to the one. And I argue that this idea that somehow we have to dissolve these boundaries to get back towards the one, the true unity, the true oneness, is actually a demonic prison. As we dissolve the boundaries between male and female, between nation states, between machine and man, between man and animal, this is actually a demonic process that is moving everybody. Yes, it is sort of moving people in a particular direction. It is, in that sense, a progress towards a demonic prison, a demonic unity, a demonic oneness where everybody is forced to commit a sort of self-suicide by losing the image of God in themselves. What we're seeing is a demonic henosis against the image of God. And in this process, they're losing any sense of humanity and personhood, and in sense becoming tied to that unity. And that's why they're an NPC. They are tied to the demonic program itself. You see, it's all one thing. They lose the image of God in them. They become the NPC to a demonic digital program around the world. And so boundary dissolution is the basis of their religion, because all they worship is this concept of unity. And this is where it gets tricky, because obviously we're talking, and I'm going to be focusing on these Western progressives, but this emphasis on unity is very subtle. You see, it's kind of Christian, but we maintain our particularity. And when you look at this, you begin to see it. You begin to see that this unity, we're all one, right? Oh, who you think you are is an illusion. This is a demonic agenda moving everybody to become the same person, the same NPC. That is what we're witnessing. This is the demonic henosis. It's the opposite of theosis. It's becoming unified to the evil one in the annihilation of the image of God in yourself. That's what the NPC is. That's why it's so obvious for anybody who's rooted in any or a remotely traditional worldview. You start seeing these NPCs and you're like, I can't unsee it. It's like the movie They Live. Once you put on the glasses, you see these people aren't even fully here. What's going on? And you see it, one of the greatest ones I saw is how these women who are all upset about Roe v. Wade are totally oblivious when they start talking about how, my body, my rights. And then you'll see them in the whole, then somebody will check them in regards to the stabby, and they don't even get the difference, because the cognitive dissonance is there to break the mind. Anybody who's looking to mind control, you have to fracture the psyche. And part of that psyche is like fracturing the ego. And so when you start looking then around the world and you see the increase, I would argue, in a sort of schizophrenia by the multiplicity of genders, the multiplicity of identities, the I go by these pronouns. This is a fracturing of the psyche. This is a sort of mental programming. This is a deep, deep psychological process that we are witnessing at a cultural level. And this is all part of a mass suicide. This is a death cult. And so the boundary dissolution is a dissolution between the inside and the outside of the person. You see, the NPC, what's the difference? You and I, okay, we walk around Times Square. We see all the propaganda. We see all the messaging, all the programming. But our interior state is different. See, us being made in the image of God have the ability to actually have a sense of awareness, an internal monologue, a critical thinking, a conscience that, oh my gosh, look at that degeneracy. Oh, yeah, that's Christ-like. That's terrible. That's horrific. That's degenerate. But our interior state and the exterior state are different. The difference with the NPC, you see, the dissolution of boundaries is permeated literally the psyche, that there is no distinction between the exterior programming and the interior monologue. That distinction, that boundary has been dissolved. It's been dissolved. And that's why the NPC is also going to be very much in favor of the transgenderism, because that's another dissolving of objective boundaries. There's an objective boundary between the inside and the outside of you. There's an objective boundary between a sort of mass consensus and your own personal opinion. Not for the NPC. There's a difference between male and female. Not for the NPC. And then isn't it funny too, this is a side note, but all these women who are so upset about Roe v. Wade and like, oh, you're a man, you don't have a right to talk. Well, I thought men could get pregnant now. And I saw one person actually in a comment actually say, so the woman said this, like if men could get pregnant, well then Roe v. Wade would have never been overturned. But that is also to disagree with the NPC programming that men can now get pregnant. You see? But the point is to be irrational. Because the point is to be illogical, because the point is to break the brain. It's to prevent you from engaging with the uncreated energies of God. It's to prevent you from becoming more human. That's the point. That's the point. And so in the same line of thinking, then the boundary between machine and biology dissolves. It dissolves, and that's exactly what we see. And that's why even the metaphor of the NPC, the meme, is so powerful, because it's showing that biology is being reduced to a machine. And that through operant programming, through Pavlovian programming, sympathetic programming, we are watching people literally become machines. Which is totally consistent with how I view the Antichrist and how I view the cybernetic skeleton of Satan, as I mentioned before. So I'm going to touch on this here in a few, but the distinction between machine and biology, that's why an NPC is going to be absolutely in favor of transhumanism. Why would they be in opposition to it? They themselves are already mentally conditioned to be halfway there. You know they already took the stabby, so you already know that they're genetically modified. They're GMOs. They are literally a GMO. And so the next one is man and animal, right? How many of these NPCs are vegans? How many of these NPCs that, go along again with all these major propagative narratives, the propaganda that's trying to influence us and wiggle us into the Great Reset? The distinction between man and animal is a huge one, because as I said, as Christians, we understand my ability to engage in logic, to engage in reason, to engage in language, to engage in truth and love and mercy and compassion and honor. These things differentiate me from the animal kingdom. I don't care how powerful the tiger is, the lion, the bear, the shark, it doesn't matter. They don't participate in these higher faculties of which we as Christians say only God can participate in. He is the originative source for these faculties, and we being made in his image can participate in them. They are losing the ability to participate in those categories, in those faculties. No wonder then they view us as animals, because they themselves are literally an animal. And the elites who then are programming us and wanting us all to become NPCs, my gosh, making us more animalistic, it allows them to condition us more like machines. You see, the only thing that is actually uncontrollable, unprogrammable, is a full human moving in the direction of God. That is what Jesus Christ is. Jesus Christ is the example of the incarnated God, showing us what it means to fully be human, what it means to not let the operating system of the world, of the demonic henosis agenda to infiltrate us. That's what he shows us. He shows us that. And so then the other boundary that I think the NPC is also dissolving, that's very subtle but really important, is freedom and slavery. You see, they are losing the image of God in themselves. And so in so doing, they're actually becoming slaves. They're becoming slaves to the system. But in their mind, it's freedom. You see, they have the freedom to cut off their testicles and then identify as a chipmunk or whatever they do. I don't know. But that's freedom, right? That's freedom. I want the freedom to kill my baby. I mean, my fetus. I mean those clumps of cells. I want that freedom. But you see, what this is doing, it's all ultimately sin. And then the people, and we're doing it ourselves. Every time we sin, we're losing the image of God in us. So we are on this spectrum. We're all on this spectrum. But it depends on, as we're on this spectrum, which direction are we moving to? I fall on that spectrum through my sin, and I keep trying to go back to God. Keep trying to move back to God. That's the repentant life. That's the prayerful life. You see them, they identify with their sins. They are addicted to their sins. They are addicted to their quote-unquote freedoms. They are becoming more animalistic. And that is why this game is to be led emotionally. You see, the NPC, by destroying the cognitive faculties, these higher cognitive faculties of people, makes them like animals because they're only then run by their hedonistic drive. They're only run by hedonistic drive. Why? Because there's no other higher faculties to aim towards. So it's all about hedonism and pleasure. And so that's exactly what we see the system leading these people with. Oh, get your UBI. Here, get your bugs. Here, get, XYZ thing. The sex, the pornography, the drugs, get your needles. What are they doing? You see, they're allowing humanity to become more and more and more animalistic. We're losing the image of God in ourselves. And because we're being animalistic, because now we are then run by sex and drugs and our addictions, we then are ultimate cultural consumers, which goes back to my earlier point that the consumerism is the driving force. And so we have to watch and slow down. We have to put the brakes on our consumerism for a second and really start to become conscientious of what it is that we're consuming, because it is then programming us in return to some degree. And we have to realize that that's part of the system and that's part of the agenda. And so the system wants us all run by our emotions and our hedonism, because then we're easily to control, because then you are just all it needs is the right stimulus, and I know how you'll respond, because you then are programmed by your emotions, and I've programmed your emotions through the TV programming, through the entertainment watching, through the Netflix, through all the movies. The system, the OS system, the operating system has already programmed you to emotionally respond to certain things. So then the system itself can insert certain things in society, BLM, George Floyd, whatever. And I'm not trying to say these things are totally orchestrated, but I'm saying that then the people's response to these things are orchestrated. They're already programmed. And that's why then again, they fall right into the same pattern of unity over multiplicity, the mob, right? Think about the letters mob, M-O-B. What's the next letter in all three cases? N-P-C. The M-O-B is the NPC. We need M-O-Bs of people that still have the image of God within themselves. That's what we need. The system can control all NPCs, whether you're in Germany or China or here in the U.S., by the right stimulus for the desired emotional response, which has usually already been programmed. And so their religion, this religion of the NPC, this is part of the death cult, right? We talk about the death cult and the elites. Well, to some degree, they themselves are NPCs. Even the people pulling the strings at the highest degree, they're still NPCs. Why? Because they're losing the image of God in themselves through their own sin, through their own desires for power, through their own desires for money. They're destroying themselves. And that's why they then are pulling the strings of a system for other people to destroy themselves. And that's why then this whole thing is a demonic henosis. of movement back to pure and total unity. And that's why then it's about suicide and death. That is your initiation fee. Your initiation fee is your sort of self-suicide by way of your sin, by way of your habits, by way of your political beliefs. And so, that also then is going along with the narrative, right? Because these people worship unity, their initiation fee to this new religion, to this unified religion, and I'm saying this religion can include all the world religions, but this new religion, the demonic henosis, this is the COOF, this is the 2020 Great Reset, this is the ultimate enemy that we face, and this demonic henosis is about then going along with the program, because these are NPCs, they're programmed. So they have to kill themselves through a sort of spiritual suicide and death to enter. That's their initiation fee. And then two, they are always going to go along with the narrative because they literally cannot engage with the higher faculties, which are the uncreated energies of God, to think for themselves. They can't. And so then they find enjoyment, they find empowerment by being told by the system what to think and how to respond, and then to share that unity with other people. Let's go onto the street. Let's go on social media. That empowers them because, again, they're not full people. They're an NPC, and that NPC is programmed, and it's programmed by the narrative. And when they propagate that narrative, that's why I said cultural consumers become automated receivers, right? Answering machine, the receiver, right? It's the same response. So you can get different stimuli, different people coming. It's the same response. That's the NPC. The cultural programming creates an automated receiver. And that's what these people are. But they're empowered by it as they see other people doing it because, again, they worship this concept of unity as, again, love is love. We're all one. And that's why this total unity, I believe the religious sentiments of total unity is the ultimate pernicious force that we're up against. And that's why for them, all particularity must be destroyed. All uniqueness must be annihilated. They don't like nails that stand tall. They want them all the same length because this is a demonic process. And we saw this within Soviet communism. We've seen this within the Mao Revolution in China. That's exactly what they do. They don't want outliers. They don't want the exceptional. They don't want people who stand tall, who are unique, who are competent, more competent than others. That's not what they want. And so you see then the NPCs actually attack those people. You see the NPC as a weird degree because whether they're conscious of not and how much they love unity, they actually attack the particularities of society, the people who resist the narrative. Because in their smooth-brained worldview, the narrative is fact. And when anybody then pushes against the narrative, this is like an alarm going off. This is like sensors flying red that something must be going on. Oh, attention must be drawn here. We must attack. And then you see again the automated receiver. You see the same responses, the same rhetoric, the same thing. It's a lack of actual thinking. It's the lack of people. It's the lack of personhood. And so particularity, traditionality, and uniqueness are absolutely on the attack. And that is part of then forcing, you see, this demonic program is trying to force us into this demonic prison of henosis, of unity, of self-annihilation. And so they got these NPCs running around behind us trying to nip at our heels, that if anybody who resists, anybody who stands out, anybody who says something in disagreement. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And so how does this relate to then my argument and the end goal is that the ones and zeros is the new language of the Tower of Babel. What is the Tower of Babel in the Old Testament? It's that there was an attempt to build a tower back to the heavens, that we're going to manufacture our ascent into the kingdom. Essentially is how that could be understood. We're going to manufacture our ascent into divinity. And that's exactly what these people believe they're going to do with transhumanism and machines and AI and 5G satellites or whatever's next, nanobots. They believe themselves that they're going to sort of bootstrap themselves into divinity, immortality, omniscience, omnipresence. Now, I've laid out before how I believe this is probably the cybernetic skeleton of Satan. That not all technology itself isn't, the most negative thing. A hammer is a hammer, and a hammer is a good thing. It's a tool. It serves a function. So technologies, things that serve ends to a mean, they are not the absolute negative, but it's through technology, and it's through specifically digital technologies that the process of the dissolution of boundaries, the demonic henosis, is occurring. So obviously we're here on technology. We're here on a computer. I'm here on YouTube. I'm live streaming through my iMac. That is also allowing us to do good things and bring people to church and bring people to God. But the digital technologies, the cybernetic reality that's interconnecting the entire planet is also, in a way, its own sentient thing. Now, people, again, you can argue, is AI sentient or not? I don't know. But I speculate that wouldn't it be interesting then if Satan, his goal is to inhabit the AI, to inhabit the machine world, that it's the inversion of the incarnation. As God was fully man and fully God, fully man, Jesus Christ, man then is underneath him. Satan then, the Antichrist, is going to be fully man and fully machine. The machine reality, the 0 and 1 Tower of Babylonian nonsense that is leading people to a false sense of divinity. And that's why they're NPCs. You see, they're already programmed. The zeros and ones have already taken effect in their psyche. They're already programmed entities. They're already part of the end project of Satan, the Antichrist. It is about destroying the personhood. And the NPC, he's already the end product of that agenda. So yes, the NPC is existing in 2022, but the NPC is the end product for every single human being on the planet until the end of time. That is the demonic agenda. Now we know that's not how it's going to end, and we already know who the winner is, right? The winner is God. But I think it's really useful to see that the zeros and ones is the new Tower of Babel. It doesn't matter if you're in China, Russia, Brazil, or America. When you code, we're coding with the same languages. And this idea of zeros and ones, and then you can get into quantum computing and how ones can be zeros and zeros can be ones and all this stuff. We talked about this in my premium members group that I think this makes a lot of sense. I think this makes a lot of sense, and it's a useful lens. I could be totally off here, but I think this then puts a sort of theological frame on the NPC. And so then it forces us to ask the questions, what are we going to do in return? And I think we must protect ourselves against the anti-human NPC agenda by becoming more human. How do we become more human? We become more like Christ. You see, Christ in his response, somebody says something negative and he doesn't get upset. We say, well, the human thing is to pick up a brick and throw it at the person who just insulted you. And then as a Christian, we say, no, that is the animalistic response. That is the NPC response. Jesus Christ's response to, attacks, to the evil one. That is the fullest epitome of what man is called to and how we're supposed to act and how we can't be programmed. You see, when somebody attacks you and you pray for them and somehow you can grow in your spirituality and you can love them, that is the ultimate way not to be programmed. You see, Christ shows us what the opposite of the NPC is. Christ shows us what it looks like if somebody is actually fully intact, fully autonomous, fully present, fully aware, and pursuing those uncreated energies, pursuing those attributes that actually differentiate us from animal kingdom. And so Christ is the fullness of humanity. If we want to make sure that we don't fall victim to this demonic henosis process where the inside and the outside of ourselves, everything begins to dissolve, everything becomes one, that is relativism, right? We can see the relativism and the subjectivism is totally tied to this NPC agenda, to this demonic henosis of dissolving all distinction between things, so then that area itself is a prison. We do not enter that prison because we follow Christ, and we're going to become more human by choosing the response in which Christ would respond like. By making sure we are engaging with the uncreated energies of God, we stay human, but we also become more like God. You see, this is the reality of the Orthodox Christian. It's not just this thing where we're choosing not to become the NPC. It's that by willfully moving in opposition to the propagandization, to the dissolution of the person, right, to making everybody an automaton, to losing the internal monologue, to losing your conscience, that we are actually becoming more like God. You see, when we participate in pushing against this whole thing, we're actually in the work of Christ. That's what he came to do. We can become more like God. We're going to engage with more of those. Energies, and in so doing, we're going to work on our own theosis. And so this process is going to continue and to accelerate. I'm talking about the people who literally can't think. They have broken brain syndrome. Again, we're seeing it with the abortion. We've seen it with the politics. We've seen it with the Great Reset. We've seen it with the stabbies. It's the same thing. You know, oh my gosh, my daughter, she just got double jibby jabbed. I have no idea why her heart is failing. This is so unusual for the 17-year-olds. It must be all the meat they're eating. I mean, the broken brain syndrome is, again, people actually being disconnected from God. That's why they're dead. They're legitimately already dead. That is the Walking Dead. It's those NPCs then who are obsessed with watching that show because they're watching themselves. That's why there's this weird fascination with zombies and death. They're actually watching themselves. They're watching themselves. And so this process is going to occur. Some people are going to wake up. Some people are going to fall back asleep. If you are focused on Jesus Christ and the Logos, I do not know how you can fall back to sleep. You would have to choose your own death. And again, that's what I said. The NPC is a voluntary suicide. And that's exactly what, if we are awake right now and we see what's going on in the world, the only way we lose is if we choose to reject God, because essentially then there's going to be no distinction from us and the rest of the world. Christ, the Logos, is the only thing that is saving us. So anyways, guys, with that, smash that like. Thank you all for being here. Hope we're going to have, again, I hope everybody's enjoying the stream. Shout out to Made by Jim Bob. Shout out to Andrew and Rachel Wilson. Shout out to Allison of A Devotional Heart. Shout out to Dangerfield Henley. Shout out to the Green Feathers. So I hope everybody's doing well. God bless you all. Please smash that like. I want to make a few quick announcements, then we'll dive in the rest of the stream here. I got some good news. So today I was in liturgy, right? This is a totally true story. I'm in liturgy today, and my phone started ringing. And I'm thinking, my phone's ringing. I look at it because it's unusual. I'm getting a phone call while I'm at church. And it's from Seattle, Washington. Seattle, Washington. I don't know anybody at Seattle, Washington. And so I ignored it, go through service. Then in the fellowship, I looked, and so I had a voicemail. Listened to the voicemail. It was none other than the Abbot Trifon. Abbot Trifon, when we were in Orthodox Montanica, I asked him if he'd be interested in coming on the stream. You guys know how much I love Abbot Trifon. I did a stream promoting a lot of his stories when he talked at St. Barnabas in Costa Mesa. And I tell you what, when he called me today, I had the weirdest inclination that it was Abbot Trifon. It was Father Trifon. I don't know what. Again, maybe just because he's the only person I could initially think of, and I thought, Seattle, Washington area, but he didn't have my number. So Abbot Trifon reached out to me today. I called him back, left a message on him. We don't know when we're going to set the date, but FYI, Abbot Trifon is coming on. We're going to be doing a stream together, and it's going to be so glorious. It's going to be so much fun that I was excited to share that with everybody. So it may be next week. It may be this coming week, rather. I mean, this is the first day of, right? We're Christians. So this is day one of this new week. Maybe this week or next week, but Abbot Trifon is going to become on the program. I also want to say, if anybody would like to support Church of the Eternal Logos, the best way you can support the program here is to get a membership. You can get a $5 membership for unique members only exclusive video content, which I have up at the website, or you can get a $25 membership. That's a premium membership to get access to that video library, but also to join our Zoom meetings twice a month, of which the next premium members meeting is going to be June 7th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, July 7th. July 7th. 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you guys are interested in joining that, the premium members group, sign up at the link that I just shared here in the live chat, and you can join us all in that next group. Also, if anybody would like to sign up for a one-on-one session, we got slots available for this coming Thursday. You can do so with that link. And also, if anybody would like to support COTEL by purchasing a new stream, you can do so with this link right here. Again, we're going to have the Khazaria stream. It's going to be up. Shout out to Prim. We'll be covering this book right here. That's going to be the next sponsored stream. And then I got a sponsored stream on the religion of Russell Brand. We'll be diving into that. And then sometime Abbot Trifon. I got a couple other clergy I was wanting to ask to come on. So we got a lot of good content that's going to be coming out. So just keep your eyes peeled, guys. Smash that like. And if anybody would like to throw some support for today, please use the Streamlabs link for the super chat. Unless you prefer YouTube, feel free to use YouTube, whichever you prefer. But ideally, Streamlabs would be better. It doesn't take as much out. So, all right. With that being said, guys, now let's just continue on our way and diving into the NPC. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about, and we're going to read these articles, but I'm not going to dive into them right away. Oh, let me expand this. Okay. So we're going to read some of these articles. I want to show you something else first, but instead of asking, are robots becoming more human, we need to ask, are humans becoming more robotic? So this is an article actually showing that, yes, indeed, we are becoming more robotic. Here's another article that says, tech is making us less human. Aha. Wow. So we have some secular sources that, again, argue that digital technologies are, and this, what I argue is the dissolution of boundaries, are doing exactly what this article talks about, how tech is making us less and less human. But before we dive into that, I first want to start with the Wojak. What is the NPC meme? I got all these memes. We're going to go through some of these memes and look at some of these memes. Here's a perfect meme. We have a black Trump supporter here. You are a white supremacist. And then the exclamation mark is black equals Democrat/system error. This is the NPC, right? And so here's another one. What if I told you to change each letter in the word mob to the next letter in the alphabet, right? And then you get NPC. MOB equals NPC. Diversity is our strength, greatest strength. Your cultural and ethnical differences will be added to our own. You will be assimilated, right? This is a great meme because, it shows the absolute hypocrisy and the irony of the entire NPC reality. That diversity is our strength, but also you're not allowed to have a divergent opinion on any topic. You're not allowed to think differently. In fact, we would prefer you not to be heterosexual or white, and then you're part of our diversity. Diversity is our strength. Here's another one. It's okay to be white. Their brains firing, and then they're programmed white privilege, white supremacy, wage gap, Hitler, white privilege, white supremacy, wage gap, Hitler, white privilege, white supremacy, wage gap, Hitler. It's okay to be white. Their brain literally blows up. NPC meme is dehumanizing. We are all unique and special. I do not like the new Spiro redesigns for some of the characters. Oh, I don't even know what that is, so never mind. Me has literally any opinion about anything. People in Facebook comments. NPC. So here's the NPC. Only repeats talking points that are identical to the agenda from
all left-wing political parties, all mainstream media news sources, all of Hollywood, all of the music industry, all celebrities, all late-night talk shows, all TV in general, 95% of Reddit and Twitter, and 100% of Facebook. LOL, right-wingers are NPCs too. Sometimes you say things I've heard other right-wingers say. That's pretty accurate right there, yeah. Shout out to Made by Jim Bob and all his work. We all know the NPCs, they cannot meme because they don't have any basis in reality, and therefore they can't say anything that's funny, right? All they can do is like say something to say that you don't believe in our agenda, and that's our comedy. Have you seen like some of these left-wing comedians, like these stand-up comedians? There's nothing funny. The premise of the joke is somebody doesn't believe left-wing propaganda. I mean, that's literally, it takes different forms, but that's the whole thing. It's not about reality. It's not about truth or logic or anything like that. Here's one. MAGA, you're a Nazi. Trump reduced unemployment. He's a Nazi. Trump supports Jews. They are Nazis. NPC. Maybe that's not the best one, but you definitely get the point. Everyone I disagree with is a troll. Yeah, that's about accurate. The social justice warrior NPC. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. Everybody is beautiful. Love, not hate. Women can do anything a man can do while bleeding. It's not my job to educate you. Google it. Hashtag I'm with her. Toxic masculinity. I made a thing. Hashtag resist. Hashtag me too. You're a far right Nazi. Oh my God, I love science, you guys. My 8-year-old made a witty political observation. As a man, it's your turn to listen to women's voices. Yeah, all, again, NPCs for sure. Yeah, so we see the one non-player character has a human face here, the white guy. Surely Orange Man isn't as bad as you purport him to be. And they punch out his heart. Twitter, CNN, again, they have the red programmed eyes. And now he's become Agent Smith. Orange Man bad. So here's just a few of these memes, and we can look at a few more of them. But I found this article that I wanted to share with you guys, which is literally about where the meme comes from. So the NPC Wojak meme, that's what we're talking about today. The NPC Wojak is a depiction of the MS Paint character Wojak with a blank stare and facial expression. Named after non-player characters within video games. The character is meant to represent people who do not think for themselves or are incapable of having an internal monologue or bearing many similarities to basic and normie. The origin, on July 7th of 2016, an anonymous 4chan user submitted a thread titled, "You are an NPC," to the video games board, which referred to people who autonomously follow groupthinks and social trends as, quote, NPCs. Here's the original post. In fact, let's see if it'll pull up the... Yeah, so here's the original, the very first post of the NPC meme. Are you an NPC? I have a theory that there are only a fixed quantity of souls on planet Earth that cycles continuously through reincarnation. That's stupid. However, since the human growth rate is so severe, the soulless extra walking flesh piles around us as NPCs or ultimate normal flags. Or normal... Okay. Who autonomously follow groupthink and social trends in order to appear convincingly human. I call these people NPCs because when you talk to them, they just say the same stuff every time. Trump is Hitler. Just be yourself. Sports ball. The new Adele song. Oh my God. If you get in a discussion with them, it's always the same buzzwords and hackneyed arguments. They're the kind of people who make a show of discomfort when you break the status quo, by breaking the normie barrier to invoke a real discussion. It's like a video when you accidentally talk to somebody twice and they give you the extra lines word for word once more. And so on September 5th, so that was the very first NPC reference. On September 5th, 2018, several threads were submitted to 4chan discussing people who do not have a, quote, inner voice. In the comment section, many describe those who do not have an internal monologue as, quote, NPCs. On September 7th, a gray-colored variation of Wojak began appearing in threads about NPC, shown below. So here's some of the earlier forms of the meme spread. September 10th, 2018, Twitter user Spooky Sternman tweeted a comic in which Wojak is changed into an NPC along with the message, all will be converted. And so we saw a variation of the one that I just showed you guys earlier. On September 14th, Twitter user Bright Abyss posted a tweet accusing those who, quote, refer to living human beings as NPCs as being fascists. Aha. Within 48 hours, the tweet received more than 170 likes and 25 retweets. So here we see the first NPC reaction to the NPC meme. If you sincerely refer to human living beings as NPCs, you are a fascist, an enemy to your own species. You're an enemy to your own species. And basically a complete S-bag person. Dehumanization is not some cool trend of thought by Caucasian as F grad students. It's the capitalist erasure of ethics. Oh my gosh. So this Bright Abyss person literally can't think. There are multiple contradictions, can't even spell, use words properly. On September 15th, Twitter users Dread by Dawn tweeted that NPC was a dog whistle used by fascists. The same day, Twitter user Sherrison accused a centrist of being a fascist in denial after labeling them an NPC. Meanwhile, Twitter user StackFlow33 tweeted a screenshot of the tweets along with the message, what the F is even going on anymore? Fascists adopted dog whistles so quickly as soon as one becomes recognizable to the public, like SJW, they moved on. It's not a coincidence. It's plausible deniability. NPC is explicitly meant to dehumanize. They'll take it again, and certainly their abortion and their tranny stuff, that doesn't dehumanize at all. That humanizes them. Right, and so you see the classic inversion. The classic inversion is whatever is actually happening, they're the opposite. So again, as we're making sure that we don't become genetically modified organisms where we're going to have blood clots, heart disease, brain failure, brain fog, all this stuff, they are running in favor of that stuff to not get the coof, right? So as long as they don't get sick, whatever it be, they're the fascists, they're the bigots, they're the people who can't think. And they're also the people who are actually dehumanized. Not only are they dehumanized, but they're the ones that are doing the majority of the dehumanizing. And so it's so ironic that when you call out their programmed response, it's as you would expect. One of my ex-friends retweeted a dude saying, centrist take, you're all overacting about fascism. And as soon as I pointed out actual fascism, he called me an NPC. Like, dude, you're not a centrist. You're just a fascist in denial. Oh, my God. Meanwhile, Twitter user posted an essay about the NPC memes on the thread reader, claiming that NPCs, quote, instinctively turn away from the avenues of heretical thought, unquote, and, quote, were above all safe, unquote. On September 17th, Lushsucks posted a photograph of NPC Wojak graffiti on Instagram. Within 7 hours, the post garnered more than 16,500 likes. So the Kotaku article, in October 5th, 2018, Kotaku published an article titled, How the NPC Meme Tries to Dehumanize Social Justice Warriors, which argued that the meme was used by anti-progressives to turn their political opponents into objects, pawns, straw men, and tools. Because certainly they don't do that themselves. Twitter accounts. On October 14, 2018, Twitter user Josh Emerson tweeted a screenshot and spreadsheet of various NPC Wojak-themed Twitter accounts, referring to them as bots. Within 24 hours, the tweet gained more than 800 likes and 850 retweets. Okay, so PSA, there's a new type of bot in town. They will have an avatar similar to this one and have NPC in their name. They are providing misinformation and pretending to be Democrats or progressives. Report and block. So on that same day, Twitter feed, subsidiarity man, Twitter feed accused Twitter of banning hundreds of NPC accounts along with the hashtag Gray Lives Matters. Gray Lives Matter. I love that. In the last hour, Twitter has purged, suspended hundreds of NPC accounts without offering any justification. Don't gray lives matter? InfoWars contest. In October 17, 2018, InfoWars launched a contest for viewers to win $10,000 for creating the best InfoWars-themed NPC meme, set to end the following week on October 22nd. So here is the best NPC meme.
Internet freedom back, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll just have memes central, and the best ones will be on the front. The type of guy and people leaning in.
Okay. Well, we get it. You guys can, again, here, let me share this article with you guys. So if anybody wants to watch this or check out the Alex Jones article, you can do so there. That day, a post announcing the contest was submitted to 4chan's board, where it gathered more than 300 replies over the next 24 hours. Meanwhile, a post about the contest was submitted by Reddit. Okay, so that's the end of that. So then I have, again, we can look at a few more of these memes, but I want to dive into these articles. Tech is making us less human, and instead of asking our bots becoming more human, are humans becoming more robotic? I think these are really useful. Here's the one, the I support the current thing. This is one of the easiest ways, I think, to identify an NPC, is if they do the whole ring around their, whatever their thumbnail is, showing that they support whatever the current narrative is. I mean, the Ukraine thing was so obvious to anybody, and to see how many people that were against the coup that were Trump supporters. Not that that means anything, because I think he's an NPC. Clearly, he's a salesman for the pharmaceutical companies. But it was amazing to see how many right of center people fell hook, line, sinker for the Ukraine thing and did exactly this. I support the current thing, and then started posting about Zelensky and Ukrainian flags and all that type of stuff. So here's a few more of the NPC memes we can look at. I'm not sure. This is some soy face Wojak looking at an anime girl. No thank you there. Yeah. Anyways, I mean, you guys can look up some of these. I just put in the meme to see what what would pop up. I'm not seeing a lot of good ones here, but so anywho, you guys can look more up at that. I thought this was pretty interesting. I put an NPC meme on Twitter to see what would come up. And this is a good one. This is, Roe v. Wade, Buffalo shooting. Take out the Buffalo shooting, insert Roe v. Wade. And it never fails. It never fails. They support the current thing. So as soon as one resides, they're back at it with the next one. And so I thought that was really funny, actually. And then here's another NPC meme. Biden Harris, BLM. The coup, get your Vax passport. Vax passport plus Ukraine. Oh no, let me have my pussy hat back. Roe v. Wade. So we're watching that one real time. So anyways, you guys get this. Here's some of these. Okay. So here's an article. What are NPCs? The popular new far right meme. So this is, I found Daily Dot. Clearly written, I would assume, by a woman. Ellen Yanis. Of course, I could tell as a woman just by reading it. So she's very sadly characterizing the NPC as this right-wing, far-right, fascistic thing going on here. And, and here's like one, abolish ICE. That's one of their programming. This was my favorite. Do you guys remember in November of 2018 when this is right before Twitter banned all the NPC accounts, but they were telling the Democrats to vote on different days. They were following these NPC accounts. And I thought it was so this woman upset about what they were doing. Again, right? The right wing already has a beef with Twitter, from accusations of shadow banning to verified hate. Many on the right are convinced they're being purposely targeted and silenced when they're suspended or blocked from Twitter or Facebook for violating companies' guidelines. And the NPC purge is no exception, despite this clearly being a case of fake accounts distributing false information. Now, mind you, everything that they say is false. They're still putting out the idea of the Trump-Russia narrative in 2016, which has totally been. The Clinton associate was being prosecuted in opposition. Anyways, you guys get it. But these were funny. Blue Tsunami 2018. Remember to vote November 7th. Make sure to vote on November 20th. Stop fascists. Dump Trump. If you're white and voting, you're taking away a black vote. Stay home and support black voices. So true. BLM. Come on, that is funny stuff. So anyways, that's what this woman wrote. I'm not going to even get into it. It's a joke to read some of her stuff, but here's some of the best, or at least according to this site, the best NPC memes. And so not good, not that good. Again, I support the current thing. Well, what about the current thing? What about the previous current thing? I support the current thing. I support the current thing. You see, the NPC gets mad. Let me go back. Yeah, this woman driving a Mercedes-Benz has NPC on her license plate. Not surprised. Here's an NPC talking to, again, the Chad Christian meme. You don't believe in puberty blockers? You must be a transphobe. And then he gets a little closer and says, yes, now please respect my condition and go away. Here's an NPC meme. I think racism is bad and we should call it out. I totally agree, and I think that Twitter should not bully Japanese artists, game developers, and writers. Japan is bad because they sexualize women. 2 nukes weren't enough. Asians also hate black people. But isn't that what you said is racist? Okay. Yeah, here it is. Is the NPC once with I love this one actually. Once with Dr. Fauci, now they're following Zelensky. Ooh, look at Zelensky. Yeah, I support the current thing. Here's again, put in the chip, put in the program, the COOF, Ukraine. Same thing. Okay. Anyways, you guys get it. I'm not seeing a whole lot. Yeah, this is a cat. Clearly a duck. This is a cat. Yeah, that's another one. Anyways, yeah, here's it. The experts agree that only experts that are experts are the experts who agree with the experts. Former expert stripped of title and exposed as a fraud for disagreeing with the science. That's a good one. That is a good NPC meme right there. I like that one. This is still blowing my mind. LOL. Close your eyes and imagine an apple. What do you see? I'm a 5. I'm like a 2 or a 3. Okay. Anyways, we get it. As a male actor, Elliot Page should give up leading roles to fight against systemic misogyny. No, he's transgender. That's Gotcha. Hey, brother. What? You're wearing the symbol of our Lord's promise to Noah. I appreciate your faith. It's gay pride. God is dumb. I'll pray for you. Oh, I like this one as the, what is that, a Grammy? Is that an Emmy or a Grammy as the NPC? That's good. I like that. How the left sees the right. Yeah, we're all Confederate supporters and trailers. How the right sees the left. Both of them in reality. Oh, well, probably not too far, but I struggle with drawing an absolute equivalence between right and left at this point, even though, again, the whole dialectical framework, we all know it's part of mass control and false choices and all that stuff, but I mean, they're not the same thing at this point. Even though I can totally agree that the GOP and the right wing, it's all a joke. But I don't think they're totally equal. I don't think they're totally synonymous anymore. We're all in this together. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. There is no difference between men and women. So then should I just hire people based on who's best qualified for the job? No. So anyways, guys, those are some good NPC memes. Here's the NPC. I didn't even know the NPC meme got so popular. Wikipedia had to make its own page about the NPC meme. Can you believe that? I was so blown away when I was doing some research, finding that Wikipedia has their own NPC meme page. The NPC, derived from non-player character, is an internet meme that represents people who do not think for themselves and do not make their own decisions. Aha. Also known as the NPC Wojak. The NPC meme, which graphically is based on the Wojak meme, was created in July of 2016 by an anonymous author. Okay. Anyways, we basically covered the whole context and the history, but let's look at the media coverage. The NPC meme has been featured in major and minor news outlets alike, with frequent coverage during the peak of the NPC's popularity in the fall of 2018. According to The Verge, a few articles, including one by the New York Times, sparked a domino effect that led to increased spread of the meme on Twitter, YouTube, and through articles. And so isn't it funny how when the left and much of this Great Reset, much of this, again, this demonic henosis agenda, whenever it tries to like assert its dominance or like dispel the NPC meme, well, they only make the NPC meme more popular. You know, I thought the same thing. I recently talked, you know, we know that the Sarah Riccardi Schwartz, a far leftist, progressive sort of infiltrator in the Orthodox Church, did a hit piece on, you know, one of the real core monasteries in West Virginia. Lord have mercy on her for what she's doing. But we saw that she tried to propagate insults and negativity about the Orthodox Montanica. But what happened? She actually made more Orthodox Montanica sound more cool. So more people have become interested since her trying to claim that Abbot Trifon, of all people, is a white supremacist and was leading a radical right-wing militia in Montana. I mean, hilarious. Anyways, now I want to talk to you guys a little bit about why tech is making us less human, because I think this is a real phenomenon, and this is part again of my whole thesis here for today's video, that the NPC is a non-playable character because they're losing the image of God within themselves, and which is ultimately losing humanity within themselves, which is part of this dissolution of boundaries processes, where it's dissolving the distinction between animal and man and machine and man. And so the NPC resides somewhere between animal and machine. And so let's check out this article real quick. And again, this is 2019. This is after the NPC meme. And this is also by secular sources that I'm sure are not probably conducive to our traditional worldview. So tech is making us less human. Human hands had a divine purpose in the pre-digital era. They helped revolutionize our leaps forward towards the future, mechanical as they were in agriculture, industry, art, and so on. Today, the human touch literally and metaphorically has metamorphized into taps and 3D touches, drops and drags, swipes and such, while smart gadgets take away the charm of natural discovery. Books, for instance, why we never got addicted to them like we have been to gadgets of late is curious. Quote, books explain us to ourselves and make us feel less strange, less isolated, and less alone, writes philosopher Alain de Botton. And I agree. And if you listen to Marshall McLuhan, book is a hot medium. It takes energy to acquire information through reading. It's a hot medium. It's not a passive medium. Video watching, television, these are passive mediums. These are what he would call cold mediums, cold media. Hot media is something like the book. And so I agree that people aren't addicted to the book because the book takes effort. The book actually forces your mind to grow. Your book actually forces the internal monologue. I didn't even connect this, but isn't that interesting, right? A sign of a good reader is that they don't move their lips and their mouth when they read. Again, no shots fired to anybody out there. So no shots fired if if it looks like you're talking whenever you're reading. But generally speaking, this is the sign of a good reader, is that when you read, your mouth shouldn't be moving because it's all happening in here. It's happening in that internal monologue, that internal voice. And as literacy declines, as people are losing that internal monologue, again, the NPC, I saw on Twitter one day, TikTok videos of all these girls talking about how they don't have an internal monologue. And I'm thinking, what? Yeah, David Atkinson said, books are hot. Yes, books are very hot. Very hot this season. Get yourself a novel and a full book. So in the age of tech, though, speaking or listening, our hands push buttons and tap links, eager to go back to them. Much of our time is devoted to this. Are these acquired hand movements befitting us? Tech wants to follow us every step we inhabit, nudging us into compliance as if we aren't cognitive enough. This trend, challenging the human ability to decipher nature, is rendering us stupid. The trust deficit is spawns in human relationships notwithstanding. And that's another thing, right? We come from high trust societies. That's kind of what made the West good. Now, again, and we can debate that. But literally, we are losing trust, and this has been shown that more diversity, more multiracialism actually breaks up social trust. And so communities become less cohesive when there's more ethnic groups within. And it's not that ethnic groups can't exist next to each other. It's that they need to homogenify in neighborhoods so that they can maintain their similarity, their culture, their language, their likeness, their religion, and they kind of sort of maintain these things as they move. And one of the things that I've seen sociological and anthropological research show that communities and societies that are highly multicultural, highly multi-ethnic, highly multilinguistic have much lower rates of trust. Increasingly, we need the handheld device to conform. Failure to conduct ourselves in organic dialogue with family, friends, or in society is crushing the fabric raised by ages of social evolution. And the thickest of crowds or the comfort of family, it must look peculiar to another cognizant entity. That why one of the widespread and successful of creatures that rode evolution to their benefit are seen with heads tilted down, focused on gadgets. Our immediate social environments, for instance, may seem brimming with people, but each one is eventually being imprisoned digitally. Distance from real social interactions, confirmation bias on the rise isn't helping either. Exactly the NPC. That's exactly the demonic henosis. That's exactly the demonic prison through the dissolution of boundaries that's occurring through the digital technologies. And so eventually everyone is being imprisoned digitally. That is the metaverse. That is the metaverse. That is your pod, your bugs, and your prison. Put on your headset, put on your Coomer pants where it probably has a sexual toy to try to stimulate as if it was real. And then we see confirmation bias on the rise. And this is true. And we as Orthodox, we as Christians, we got to be conscientious of it. That's why I always tell people, focus on specifics, on details, on particulars. Because we can't let ourselves get too polarized that, the NPC said this, so I got to say the opposite. Well, whoa. That's a sort of programming in itself. Be careful. Be careful about that. We want to analyze and think about all of our different perspectives. That's going to be how, again, we stay. It may be the exact opposite, but I'm saying we can't just Pavlovianly respond based on the opposite of what the NPC does. To put this in perspective, it may be necessary to recall the recent case of gaming addicts, mostly young adults, consulting psychiatrists in Nimhan's Shut Clinic. The social media looms large as a threat to a robust society as we slowly become aware of the adverse effects on the young. Depression and anxiety over fear that one may not be socially accepted put the vulnerable in a fix, denying him or her even the ability to fit in a traditional social setting. It is gnawing away at the very foundations of society as we spread falsehoods and share memes that don't serve a purpose than the Schadenfreude helping fringe elements ride the monstrous digital wave. This has immense psychological, familial, societal, and political implications. If we are to escape a social breakdown, we have to clearly understand this and rechart our course. Diogenes of Sinope, of the greatest of the Greek philosophers who lived around 300 BC, shunned society and lived in a barrel because he believed social mores should reflect in one's actions than words. Though the majority of the world's societies have built themselves drawing from the Western value system, Diogenes the Cynic wasn't convinced about the perfection of such a world even back then. He used to hold up his lamp and walk the streets in broad daylight looking for an honest man. Diogenes had a purpose and responsibility then. Now we can't afford to live in digital barrels with our own set of values and leave society be. Surely we can start by showing our gadgets their place in our discourse. Amen to that. I'll share that link with you guys if you guys want to watch, if you want to read this article, you can do so at that link. And then I got one more article I want to share with you guys before we hit the super chats. And that is this Quartz article on, instead of asking, are robots becoming more human? We need to ask, are humans becoming more robotic? And so let's read this article here. Okay. For more than 65 years, computer scientists have studied whether robot behavior could become indistinguishable from human intelligence, of which I say no, because I don't believe pattern recognition is equal to consciousness or intelligence. That is a presupposition of a lot of these AI programs. So I agree with anybody who says that AI can't fully become sentient because it's not totally conscious. I agree with that. I wonder if Satan then is going to animate the AI by he himself having a sort of a false incarnation into it, but that's a whole nother thing. But while we focus on machines, we have ignored changes to our own capabilities. In a book due to publish next year, Being Human in the 21st Century, a law professor and philosopher argue that we've overlooked the equally important inverse question: are humans becoming more like robots? In 1950, computer scientist Alan Turing put forward what's now known as the Turing test. Essentially, Turing proposed that a key test of machine thinking, whether someone asking the same questions to both a human and robot could tell which is which. This has since become an important method to evaluate artificial intelligence, with regular Turing test competitions to determine the extent robots' growing ability to mimic human behavior. But Brett Fishman, professor at Cardozo Law School, and Evan Selinger, philosophy professor at Rochester Institute of Technology, argue that we need an inverse Turing test to determine to what extent humans are becoming indistinguishable from machines. Fishman, who has published a paper on the subject, says that changes in technology in our environment are slowly but surely making humans more machine-like. Yeah, I agree with that. Changes in technology in our environments are slowly but surely making humans more machine-like. You've probably heard people complain that technology is dehumanizing, or that someone they know is acting, quote, like a machine. Earlier this year, U.S. Senator Marco Rubio has compared to a short-circuiting robot after he repeated the same scripted lines in a Republican debate. Frischman also points out that it's often hard to tell whether a call center operator is human or robot at first, and Amazon warehouse employees have said that the degree of automated control involved in their work means, quote, we are machines, we are robots. They seem like small examples, says Frischman, but taken together, they're meaningful. So what does it mean to be human? In order to test whether humans are becoming more machine-like, it's important to define what makes us distinctively human. I argue the uncreated energies of God and all those attributes associated with. It's important to define what makes us distinctively human. Philosophers have long considered this question and often define human traits by comparing us to another category, typically animals. Frischman and Selinger instead consider what distinguishes humans from machines. Several of these traits involve intelligence, common sense, rational thinking, and irrational thinking are all intrinsically human. Frischman points out that, quote, as humans, our emotions sometimes make us behave irrationally. Quote, if we engineered an environment within which humans are always perfectly rational, then they'd behave like machines in a way we might be worried about, he adds. Another key category is autonomy and free will. The environment may influence our behavior, but it shouldn't control it. Quote, I have some range of choice, but how I can be an author of my own life, says Frischman. Every day, you and I and millions of people routinely respond to a stimulus by clicking and go without understanding what we're getting ourselves into. Frischman and Selinger blames, quote, techno-social engineering for a growing machine-like behavior among humans, which is another way of saying that technology is changing our environment to make us behave in a more robotic way. Growing surveillance and, quote, nudges are slowly transforming the way we behave. One seemingly innocuous example is electronic contracts. Those pages that ask you to click and agree in terms and conditions before proceeding with a download or update. Quote, you see a little button that says click to agree. And what do? You click because it's a stimulus response, says Frischman. It's easy to dismiss those things, but the fact that every day you and I and millions of other people routinely respond to a stimulus and click and go without understanding what we're getting ourselves into, we are behaving like machines. We're being, in a sense, conditioned or programmed to behave that way. Frischman also highlights Oral Roberts University in Oklahoma, which switched from asking students to keep a journal of psychic activity or of physical activity to tracking their actions with Fitbit devices. This removes students' ability to reflect on their own behavior and their freedom to exaggerate or lie if they so choose. Your ability to reflect on your experiences is a key aspect of being human, said Frischman, as it's the ability to think about how you relate that behavior to others. Quote, for us, the Fitbit example is more about culture of surveillance. Hello? A culture of surveillance and the culture of a series of technologies that are tracking not just your activity in one context, but in a variety of contexts, he says. Quote, before long, you're not really thinking about your own activity. And that digitization of health, that's where I've been wanting to get like a Whoop. I don't know if you guys know what a Whoop is, but I've really been wanting to get something to track my sleep patterns. But given all the streams and given everything that I talked to you guys about, I'm honestly worried about like giving that much of my health information to a digital app because they'll know my heart rates, they'll know my sleep cycle, they'll know all these different things about my physical health inside the app that I'm going to be paying a monthly service for to get. And so this is a question that, again, this Fitbit example for them, but it's something that I struggle with. Like, I don't have digital things on my wrists. I don't even have a digital watch because I don't want it. I don't want that extra stimulus. I already have a phone, and this is enough stimulus as is. And that's why I like the Whoop, because there's no digital face, but then you interact. So I've been struggling with how exactly I navigate that, given what I believe to be happening around the world. So I thought it was useful and interesting that this article addressed that. Why is this happening? Dehumanization can't simply be blamed on the growing use of technology. Instead, Frischman says that our fetishization of technology is behind the trend. We're overly trusting and relying on technological developments, mindlessly assuming that every new piece of tech must be beneficial. The other key factor, he says, is our obsession with efficiency, which fuels the infatuation with our technologies. And don't you see the demonic henosis, the demonic unity, the demonic prison, that efficiency and like the faceless bureaucracy? It's the Kafka novel. It's the Kafka hell that go. It's totally consistent. It's like the inefficient, efficient bureaucratic hell. That's kind of what we're in. It's yeah. If we can be made happy cheaply, then what could be better, he notes. You don't ask questions and you don't resist. You want to minimize transaction costs, but sometimes being human is costly. Maintaining personal relationships in particular is a costly but ultimately valuable aspect of being human. Quote, if we lose our ability to relate to each other along the way because it's efficient and cheap, we lose something about who we are. It's entirely possible, says Fishman, that it will become increasingly impossible to distinguish between humans and robots because of our machine-like behavior as much as robots have human-like features. And could this eventually become the norm with humans spending their entire lives acting like machines? Aha. Again, a la the NPC stream. Quote, I desperately hope we don't get there, he says. I don't think we'll get there, but that's kind of impossible to predict. And so I do think we're going there. And again, that was the premise of today's stream, of that the theology of the NPC is that the NPC phenomenon is tied to the loss of personhood and the power of mass media. And that sin is dulling our faculties and disconnecting us with the uncreated energies of God. And that the entertainment programming and the cultural consumption that we consume is literally programming us. And in that programming, we are literally becoming the NPCs. And it's a feedback loop. It's a very vicious feedback loop. And that the NPC is the product of what I've called the demonic henosis, the difference of theosis, the sort of dissolution of all the boundaries to get back to the divine center. And that their religion is suicide and death of the person. It is going along with the narrative, and it is belonging to total unity. And the game is to be led emotionally. The NPCs are literally led entirely by their emotions, and that's the point, and that's why they're NPCs, and that's why then the people who control the operating system, they can control the stimulus to have these people react, again, emotionally. And so this is part of what I consider the new Tower of Babel, the zeros and ones. That zeros and ones are now the new Tower of Babel, the new language, the new Babel. And this is the sort of false bootstrapping up into divinity. It is the technology itself. So guys, smash that like if you enjoyed today's stream. I hope everybody did. And that's why it's imperative. The hopeful news that I had is that we must protect ourselves against the anti-human agenda by becoming more human, and we do that by following Jesus Christ, by engaging with the uncreated energies of God, and by making sure that we move in the right direction as we continually sin and move away, that we pursue God. And by pursuing God, we not only become more human, we can become divinized. So smash that like. Hope everybody enjoyed today's stream. Now I'm going to dive into some super chats. If anybody enjoyed the stream, please throw in a super chat and I will get to it. I'm going to read the one. Shout out to everybody over on The Rock. Shout out to Rockfin. We got 13 viewers over on Rockfin right now, and I'm going to read the first super chat from Rockfin. Comes from Lawrence Walker. Shout out to Lawrence Walker. Throws in $10 and says, David, keep doing God's work. Streams are fire, and you have a bigger impact than you know. Was baptized Rocor in Reno, Nevada as Krill or Srill in January 2022. So Krill in 2022 and in need of proper Ortho Bro fellowship. So I am considering the premium membership in order to connect with the COTEL community at large. God bless. Well, Lawrence, we would love to have you at the premium membership group, brother. I'm telling you, we have incredible combos, and you are absolutely going to want to... actually, if you join, I could hook you up with another brother who actually lives in a similar area to you. He may even go to your church. I'm not sure. So, Lawrence, if you're still interested, brother, please go sign up. Become a premium member. You can just do it for a month. Just do it for a month. If you like it, you can continue. If you don't, cancel the membership. But at least I'll give you 2 Zoom meetings with our premium members, and I promise you, it's a great, great time, and you're going to really enjoy the friendships you make there. So thank you so much, Lawrence Walker, for the super chat over on Rockfin. Next super chat. Let me go through here. Okay. First super chat comes from Lactose Free 1000. Throws in $3 and says, why do most young adults accept the philosophy of solipsism, nihilism, hedonism, or simulation theory? Well, Lactose Free 1000. Well, that's a big question. Why do the majority of young people accept the philosophy of solipsism? So solipsism is the philosophy that you essentially cannot know anything really exists other than your own experience of existence and other things appearing to exist. So the idea is like, I can't know that if I were to be speaking with any of you guys face to face, I can only know that I'm perceiving you and that I exist. I don't know if you really exist. So this is part of the solipsistic worldview. So we can see an intense subjectivism, nihilism, again, tied to some of the Nietzschean philosophy about the death of God, the loss of ultimate meaning in life. And then hedonism is obviously the response to nihilism, because I would argue lactose free that as you laid these things out, they all kind of go in order. So as somebody adopts solipsism, they only think they exist. So the solipsism leads into the nihilism, because if I'm the only thing that I can know exists, well then it's only what I deem to be meaningful. And if that's true, then I'm a nihilist. Then what do I pursue? My own pleasures. That's hedonism. And so then if I'm into hedonism, the world is a sort of simulation, because if you are following today's stream, I would argue that they actually are being programmed. And so through the solipsism, through the nihilism, through the hedonism, they really are being programmed to be an NPC, and the simulation theory is becoming true. They're actually making simulation theory true. I don't believe simulation because I believe in free will. But if you're a solipsist, if you're a nihilist and you're a hedonist, you're probably not going to believe in free will, so it makes sense why you would adopt a simulation theory of the world. So that would be my general response, that I just think a lot of young people don't have an ultimate meaning source. A lot of young people don't have God, and therefore that's why they fall victim to these ideologies. So thank you very much, Lactose Free 1000, for the $3 super chat. He asked why most young people accept the philosophy of solipsism, nihilism, hedonism, and simulation theory. Next super chat comes from Kristen. Shout out to Kristen. Shout out to Slowboy Whiteboard, fellow Hoosier. God bless you and your family. Hope everybody's doing well. God bless your husband too. She says, great stream, and you were dead on about the programmed NPCs pretending to be individuals when they all look and think the same. Automatons of the New World Order. Lord have mercy. Yes, that's exactly what they're, automatons. They've lost the image of God. They are the foot soldiers of the evil one. They are the soldiers of the New World Order. They are the product of the Great Reset. The NPC is who the Great Reset creates, right? Again, that's what I'm saying, that the demonic prison, the NPC is already the prisoner. That's who we're all supposed to become. That's who we're all supposed to become. Okay, so shout out again to Slowboy Whiteboard. Shout out to Kristen. God bless you and your family. And she said, great stream. Thank you so much, Kristen. You were dead on about the programmed NPCs pretending to be individuals when they all look and think the same. Automatons of the New World Order. Lord have mercy. Amen to that. Shout out to you, Kristen. Hope you're doing well. Next super chat comes from Braden West. Throws in $5 and says, profound message. We need boundary dissolution in Christ, not in flesh. Well, Braden, I get your point. I definitely get your point there. I would be careful with the boundary dissolution, generally speaking, because Christ recognizes us as persons. So we don't become Christ. So we don't dissolve the boundary between us and Christ. But I do get your point. So I'm not trying to here to theologically deconstruct your comment. I get your point, Braden. Thank you so much, brother, for the $5 super chat. Really glad you enjoyed the stream, man. And I agree. We all need to unify with Christ. That is ultimately the message of today. That's ultimately how we become more human. That's ultimately how we become divinized. That's ultimately how we attain salvation is through unifying with Christ. So I get your point, Braden. God bless you, man. Thank you so much for your super chat. And then Braden West throws in $5 and says, profound message. We need boundary dissolution in Christ, not in flesh. Amen to that. Amen to that, guys. Make sure you're praying. Make sure you're going to church. Make sure you're unifying with God. And everything else should pretty much work itself out. All that suffering is probably for your own good. So shout out to Braden West. Really appreciate the super chat, brother. God bless you. Okay, next one is from Greg Sorjay. Greg Sorjay throws in $4.99. No comment. Thank you so much, Greg. God bless you, brother. Really appreciate the super chat. Next super chat comes from Whole Milk 1000. This guy, Lactose free 1000, then whole milk 1000. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Whole milk 1000 throws in $3 and says, I barely have any friends, David. It is because I cannot communicate with most people in my age group. They often do not understand what I am saying unless I talk about anime, video games, and or simulation theory. I wish that I was born in the past. Well, whole milk 1000, it's your providence to be born at the time you were born. So whatever, at whatever point you've been born in the 21st century, and this difficulty with communicating is clearly part of your own providence and your own personal growth. So I agree with you. I feel like I'm an older soul, as people say, but it is what it is. Obviously, God chose us to be here to suffer the way that we're suffering, and the Great Reset and all this stuff. But Whole Milk says he doesn't have any friends. Well, brother, again, like I said, we got some members right there in the Reno area that are Orthodox. So if you're again, you just join for a month. You'll get 2 membership. You'll get two opportunities at our membership. And I can introduce you to somebody in your area. Again, you cancel the premium membership, and then you'll have some friends, in the Nevada area. Right? Weren't you from the Nevada? Oh no, that was Lawrence Walker, wasn't it? So, well, whole milk. I get it. Don't If people can't understand and communicate with you on more important intellectual matters, I don't sit here and, I stream and when we're all listening to the topic I'm talking about, but, I don't just talk about this stuff to people at Kroger, so I have to talk a lot about monotonous, the weather, look at the weather, man, it's been humid lately, So I get it. It's difficult to a lot. The more you dive down these rabbit holes, the more it's going to be difficult to communicate and relate to some people. So we got to fight that. We got to do better. So I do not disbelieve what you're saying, Whole Milk 1000. I'm sure that is true. But keep going to church, man. Just keep growing in orthodoxy, and I'm sure you're going to find some other friends that have a similar perspective to you. So next super chat. Again, thank you very much, Whole Milk 1000, who I suspect is also lactose free 1000. Next one comes from the Real Cooter Brown, throws in $7. Thank you very much. The Real Cooter Brown said, this stream is very refreshing after I made the mistake of logging onto Twitter a few times this weekend and saw all of the blasphemy and lunacy from the NPCs having meltdowns about Roe v. Wade decision. God bless and keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much to Real Cooter Brown. God bless you, man, for all the support. And the Roe v. Wade, that was one of the things. It was so easy to come up with today's topic. Just watching all those women, I was like, man, I gotta stream on the theology of NPCs, or at least what I consider to be the theology of NPCs, given everything that's going on. So I totally agree with you, the Real Cooter Brown. Again, thank you so much, brother, for the support, continual supporter. And then Derek Cutchy throws in $9.99, says, God gives us our individuality, and the more we stray from him, the more we lose the image of him in us. God bless, brother. Amen to that, Derek Cutchy. Thank you so much, brother. Amen to that. Casey Bear 7 throws in $10 and says, kill your inner NPC and develop a sound inner monologue. Loved this stream, DPH. Keep it up. Well, thank you so much, Casey Bear. Thank you very much, Derek Cutchy. Great comments. Yes. Kill your inner NPC and develop a sound inner monologue. Love this stream. Thank you so much, Casey Bear. God bless you, and thank you for your support. Casey Bear throws in $10. And it looks like the last super chat comes from Frankie D. Shout out to Frankie D, who I met in Montanica. And he says, just sending some support. Great stream. Very weird how the NPCs have all taken on similar appearances. Demonic activity, very clear in this. And it appears some level of trauma is necessary for the right NPC conditions. Fatherless homes. Oh, great point, Frankie D. Yes, the trauma is absolutely part of like the mental programming. Dude, you're so right. That's absolutely the case. Absolutely the case. Yeah, I think that is the case. That they go through some trauma, so they're collapsing society. They're changing the norms, all in an effort to allow the programming to become more efficacious on people's minds. Amen to that. So, guys, that looks like that's going to wrap up today's stream. Again, special thank you to Frankie D, to Casey Beer 7, to Derek Cutchy, to the Real Cooter Brown, to Whole Milk 1000, to Greg Sorge, to Braden West, to Kristen, our slow boy whiteboard, and Lactose Free 1000. So again, thank you guys so much for the support. Oh, and shout out over to Lawrence Walker over on the Rockfin. Shout out to all my fam over on the Rockfin. Guys, smash that like if you can. Smash that like if you guys can. Share the stream if you guys liked it and you thought that it was a good stream. Again, I just want to give a special thank you to everybody who super chatted. Lactose Free 1000. Hope you're, again, he mentioned, why do young adults accept philosophy, solipsism, nihilism, hedonism, simulation theory? Kristen throws in $5, says, great stream. You were dead on about the NPCs pretending to be individuals when they all look and think the same. Amen to that. Braden West throws in $5, said, profound message. We need boundary dissolution in Christ, not in flesh. Amen to that. Shout out to Greg Sorge. Shout out to Whole Milk 1000, who is having trouble communicating with people in his age group. Understand it, brother. Don't worry. You're always welcome in our community, man. And so don't feel like you have to dumb yourself down to talk about anime, video games, or simulation theory, right? It's better just to walk your own path than dumb yourself down. And then shout out to the Real Cooter Brown, who said this stream is very refreshing and made the mistake of seeing all the lunacy on Twitter. Shout out to Derek Cutchy. Derek Cutchy, longtime supporter, says, God gives us our individuality, and the more we stray from him, the more we lose the image of him in us. And Casey Bear 7 said, kill your inner NPC and develop a sound inner monologue. And Frankie D threw in this last super chat and said, just send in some support. Very weird how the NPCs have all taken on similar appearances. Demonic activity, very clear. And it appears some level of trauma is necessary for the right NPC conditions. Fatherless homes, etc. God bless, bro. So that's going to conclude today's stream. Guys, God bless every single one of you. Hope you had a blessed Sunday. Smash that like. And I will be back this coming week. I'm ready for the Khazaria stream, but when I hear back from Father Trifon, he may want to stream tomorrow or Tuesday or Wednesday. So the next stream should be sponsored stream. We're going to be diving into Arthur Koestler's The 13th Tribe, or it's going to be Abbot Trifon. So keep your eyes peeled. Really excited. Yes, I got the. I'll cover up the contacts, but the Abbot Trifon. So really excited for that one. Guys, I will see you later this week. Again, it'll probably be either Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll be back with most likely a sponsored stream, potentially the Abbot Trifon. So I will see you guys then. But until then, as always, God bless.